Harrisburg City Council Legislative Session. Today is Tuesday, September the 22nd, 2020. I am now calling this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett.
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present.
Ms. Daniels.
Here.
Ms. Green.
Present.
Mr. Madsen.
Here.
Mr. Majors. Ms. Williams.
Present. Thank you. Moving on to the invocation, Mr. Madsen.
Thank you, President Williams. I'd like us to take a moment of silence and remember the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice that passed away this past Friday. She left a long legacy of judicial opinions that furthered the country, moved the country forward, particularly around women's rights. And just want to acknowledge her passing and just give her a moment of silence and respect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Madsen. Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Green.
Thank you, President Williams. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Before we move on with the agenda, I would like to announce that Harrisburg City Council held executive session on Monday, September the 21st, 2020, and it was involving legal issues. Now moving on to communications, we have none this evening. We now will move on to courtesy of the floor. Mr. Petrosky, is there any comments?
Yes, we have one. One comment submitted by Kamika Campbell. She writes, "Dear Mayor Papenfuss and members of City Council, I submit for your consideration this letter from Friends of Midtown of Young Professionals and Young Professionals of Color with a personal note. If you live in Midtown, please stop calling the police on Black business owners. I call on Mayor Papenfuss and the council to address this issue by using the power they already have to rein in the Bureau of Police and stop from acting as personal security services for dominant culture residents of Midtown. In particular instance, when the police were called, they came and harassed the business owner for allegedly not having a permit, but left without even seeing the permit. The officers were extremely rude with the business owner to the point of emotional distress and left. Thank goodness it wasn't worse, but it was pure harassment. These officers should have recognized that the event was peaceful and lawful and not harass this business owner to the point of emotional distress. It's these kinds of small abuse of power and pure waste of my tax dollars that I'm completely against on the part of the Harrisburg Bureau of Police. They led to bigger issues with misuse of power. Do not think for one moment that these issues are not connected to what is going on across the country right now. The police commissioner, the mayor, and the Bureau keep telling us that they care about the community. If this is true, I call on them to put the actions to the words and stop being used as discriminatory and prejudice dominant culture residents to enact this kind of psychological violence on Black business owners in the area. Thank you for your consideration. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. And Ms. Campbell, I certainly will have Ms. Green, who is our public safety chair, look into that. Ms. Green, did you hear that? Thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes, council members, approval of legislative session minutes of September the 8th, 2020. Are there any omissions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, they will stand approved. Thank you. We now move on to reports of committee. Report from Chair Allett on the work session of September the 15th, 2020. Mr. Allett, are you ready for your report?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
For discussion on last week's work session was the fourth proposed budget reallocation, resolution 70. It has several components to it. I'm going to read through some of the summary and I'd actually defer if there is any issue that a council member has with any part of it to let me know, because we might want to break out that as an amendment as opposed to anything else, but I have not heard from anybody on that. So assuming that there is none, we'll be voting on the resolution as a whole. That is what I will move forward with. However, if that's not the case, please say sooner than later so we can make sure that we can take care of the rest of the allocations. There are several different appendixes that are part of this resolution. In Appendix A, we are dealing with some realized grant money coming into the city. And so that is something that is going to be allocated appropriately, including a grant that has been awarded to assist the city of Harrisburg in the adoption of the food code retail standards, as well as part of a $2.4 million RCAP grant from the Redevelopment Authority for the Mulder Square project, $500,000 PennDOT contribution for the State Street project, and $153,000 from the fund balance for the State Street project. That is all part of Appendix A, as well as some legal allocations as well. Then in Appendix B, we are covering a request for tree trimming and cutting dead trees in the city. That is getting allocated to cover that. And then also dealing with some expected year-end expenses in vehicle management that is being allocated as such. We are also looking to add a codes enforcement officer. As explained by the mayor last week, this is a non-uniformed individual working in codes to help enforce parking issues. Also in Appendix D, we are dealing with as part of our essential workers in the city, additional funds to be paid out to members of ASME, members of management, and those who are working in essential workers. And can I just get a confirmation, Wanda, I know you were asking about this, law enforcement rank and file was included in this COVID bonus as well?
Yes.
Okay. And so those are COVID bonuses going to those essential workers. There is also funds being allocated so the fire department can seek to purchase and replace and purchase a new Tower 1 apparatus. So that covers all the allocations that are covered as part of the fourth proposed 2020 budget reallocation. That is my report, and I will cede it back to you, President Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Next, we will move to report from Chair Bowers on the work session of September the 15th, 2020. Ms. Bowers, are you ready with your report?
Yes, thank you, President Williams.
You're welcome.
Good evening. The Building and Housing Committee met on Tuesday, September 15th, 2020, during the council work session to discuss Resolution 66 of 2020. Resolution 66 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Civitas LLC for the purpose of providing professional services to the city's Department of Building and Housing Development, including but not limited to technical assistance and general consulting services for general technical assistance, lead Tier 2 site-specific environmental review, and CARES Act technical assistance. Ms. Lily Williams, Interim Director of the city's Department of Building and Housing Development, was present to provide an overview of the agreement. Ms. Williams also answered questions council members had pertaining to the length of the agreement and specific services provided. The city previously entered into an agreement in 2019 with Civitas LLC to provide professional services to support the Department of Building and Housing Development through the passage of Resolution 83 of 2019. The new agreement will provide additional services through December 31st of 2021. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Moving on to report from Chair Green on the work session of September the 15th, 2020. Ms. Green, are you ready with your report?
Yes, President Williams.
Thank you.
During the work session of September 15, 2020, the Public Safety Committee met to discuss three pieces of legislation. Resolution 51, which is a resolution providing guidelines for the review of use of force policies and practices in the city of Harrisburg and establishing timelines for such reporting by the mayor, reporting to the mayor and council. During this discussion, we had some concerns from our council and my fellow colleagues on the data points that were provided in the report that we received before we went on hiatus for the summer. And so we're looking to add more data points to ensure that it encompasses all of the data we're looking to collect, which would include demographics, areas of the city where use of force was used so that we can compare different areas of the city and the use of force being used throughout the city. We also discussed Resolution 68, 2020, which is a resolution authorizing the use of limited agreement for certain post-employment retirement benefits rates to attract and retain experienced senior management officials for the Harrisburg Bureau of Police. This was a contract that was looked to be put forth to help us retain our senior management officials and to attract more senior management officials in the Bureau of Police. We received some information from the mayor. We asked for more information as far as the cost and how it would affect our budget long-term. I don't believe we've received that information yet. And that piece of legislation is on tonight's agenda, and I believe we'll be suspending the rule so that we can get some more information and see if we're able to vote on that tonight or if it'll be put on the next workshop session. We also had a discussion on Bill 8/2020, which is an ordinance amending Part 5 of the Administrative Code under Chapter 2-500, adding there to Chapter 2-515 to establish a Citizens Law Enforcement Advisory Committee. During this discussion, we were able to discuss some potential amendments to this bill, which would include removing the chief of police and the public safety chair to make the board more independent. Instead, having quarterly invitations being sent to the public safety chair and the chief of police to encourage communication. Since 2 non-voting members would be removed, it would add 2 at-large members to the committee that would allow for more community input. The orientation would be changed so that it wouldn't be held by the Bureau of Police, but instead would be arranged by the law department to take away some of the concerns that we heard from the public with the Bureau of Police hosting the orientation. We also discussed administrative subpoena powers that would allow for information to be subpoenaed, such as documents and tapes from outside and third-party entities. We also discussed inserting a statement of intent, which council members agreed that we'd like to be a little more than what was put in the initial draft. We had more input from other council members that would like to see more community input into the appointments and reaching out to neighborhood groups to create a list of potential appointments. I also thought that would be a great idea to use for some of our other vacancies throughout our boards. And then also adding some other recommendations as far as our membership qualifications that would include having someone with a mental health background or a trauma-informed care background. Bill 8 and Resolution 51 will be discussed at our next workshop session. We held the first workshop session of October, and Bill 68 will be discussed tonight, and we'll see if we'll be voting on it tonight or whether it will be added to the next next workshop session. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Next, we have a report from Chair Mattson on the September 15th, 2020 work session. Mr. Mattson, are you ready with your report?
I am, President Williams.
Thank you.
On September 15th, the Community and Economic Development Committee had a work session and received an update from Harrisburg University from Representative Diane Tarkowski. Ms. Tarkowski went over the outreach plan for MWBE participation. A digital town hall will be planned so constituents can learn about the project and local contractors can find out how to participate in the project. Jamal Jones with the administration, Director of Business Development, gave an overview as well of the plan and put in his input as well. The Law Bureau, it should be noted, gave an oral opinion on what municipalities can regulate in terms of NWBE participation. A written briefing has been provided to council. It came late this afternoon, but it should be noted a written opinion was provided to council. Next, the committee discussed Resolution 61. The committee received an overview of the land development plan from Planning Director Jeff Knight. The land development plan is in compliance with the city's rules and regulations. The applicant did provide an MWBE participation plan, and council has received a written plan to review as well. That was also provided this afternoon. Next, the committee discussed Resolution 67. The applicant gave a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter an easement agreement with Omnisite Media for the purpose of utilizing the access road in Paxton Park in order to construct and maintain a billboard in the adjacent Scottsdale Shopping Center. And the applicant gave an overview to the committee of the agreement. The administration provided some points as well. Of note were some concerns over the length of the agreement. The agreement terms were based off sort of standards in the industry, but there was some concern there. But however, the members that were concerned over it were provided information on terms of the terms. I do believe that's been resolved. And then of note was the stormwater fee as well, whether or not if there was a stormwater fee because the project is in Spadera Township, who would pay for the fee. It turns out the project is not of the size where it would have a fee, but the applicant did agree if there was a fee, it would fall on the applicant, not the city. And they verbally agreed to that as well. And they will be agreeing into it in writing as well. And that is it, or concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. We now move on to ordinance for first reading. We don't have any tonight. Ordinance for amendment, none. And then ordinance for final passage, we have none as well. We move on to resolution. Resolution 20 of 2020. Mr. Petrosky, could you please read that into record?
Yes, Resolution 20 of 2020 is a resolution approving the revised lot consolidation and preliminary final land development plan submitted by Dr. Eric Dar on behalf of Harrisburg University to construct a new 11-story institutional building consisting of university classrooms and service unit.
Council members, are there any additional questions, comments?
Yes, I have one.
Question 2.
Okay,
So just for me, just because the applicant at the time of their application, I was employed by them, I will be abstaining from this vote.
thank you, Mr. Allen. That's understandable. Ms. Bowers?
Thank you. My question is pertaining, I guess this would be more for Neil. I read the opinion that we received right before the meeting, but I'm just not clear why the city doesn't enforce the Title II. Particularly the Part 9, 2-901 and Section 2-901.3. I think you referenced that one in the opinion, but I'm just curious because it clearly outlines, given any type of construction, development, it clearly notes the business enterprise and targeted goal for minority participation, as well as women-owned business enterprises. So I'm just not clear why we cannot enforce that.
Sure, because the ordinances were created in 1983. In 1989, the US Supreme Court invalidated all such ordinances as having to have very specific empirical data, locally based. It's been developed then by hundreds of cases in federal court since then. There was no empirical data connected to that. And if there was, it would be too old as a matter of law to enforce at this time. So what has to be undertaken, which is sort of the guideline I go into later in the opinion, and the opinion is only really the first 3 pages, the rest of it is actually the chapters you just cited, is that we have to have a proper analysis and gathering of data. The data may exist, but someone who is credentialed would have to provide that as a basis to point to. One of the cases I noted was out of Philadelphia, where they categorized 5 separate protected classes. And the appellate court said, the data you've provided for 2 of them are satisfactory, at least for the moment, and they sent it back to the court, from the lower court for more proceedings, but said there was no data available in the record on other categories, including women and Hispanics that were in their attempt to remediate past historical wrongs. So it is data-driven, it's temporal and time data-driven. It's the kind of program that you have to get into and sustain the information in a regular way. And otherwise, they have held it's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the US Constitution. That's where we're there. I mean, we're plainly on notice, as is every other municipality, that there are these boxes that we are in, and I can't give you an opinion to when the court has said it violates equal protection to move forward with such an ordinance. The second ordinance required agreements, And if you'll note, after the first round of agreements, none ever existed again because of the court rulings that came in between. And those agreements were just between other public entities and ourselves.
Okay, so one follow-up question. So within that section 901.3, it notes, do we have a contract compliance officer?
Again, no, I don't know if they had one back in 1983. I will note that was the first full year or the second full year of the Reed administration. It was sort of a new era at the time. If there is a contract compliance officer at some point, I'm unaware of seeing that title. It doesn't mean one didn't exist, and it doesn't mean someone wasn't tasked with that assignment at different points in time. But under that title, no, not a straight contract compliance officer.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any additional questions or comments, council members?
I just want to note that I will, as Chair of Community and Economic Development, I've looked over the briefing, but would like to see what we can do in terms of moving forward with collecting data so that we can look at advancing local participation. So I'll be looking to work with the administration on that moving forward.
And I would suggest the answer lies in funding and assignment, and which would allow us to rewrite the ordinance and make it enforceable.
Well, no,
That's
we
what
did,
we-
well, Neil, we did have a contract compliance officer, and that person has resigned. We have not had one in the last 2 years, so we can look at putting a contract compliance officer position in the budget this year.
I think you need more than that. You need someone who's a statistician who can
And,
actually do the analysis.
Okay, but the last contract compliance officer did do analysis. So we can include that in the job specifications. Welcome, Mr. Majors. Is there any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Just to catch Mr. Majors up, we're voting on Resolution 20 for Harrisburg University. And Mr. Allett has
Recused himself.
just to check on a parliamentarian, is it preferably for a recusal or an abstention? Just for the record, in his part. Are you good with him recusing?
Tonight, I'm good with either. How's that?
How about that? Mr. Allett is Allett's gonna
Recuse.
voting due to a conflict of interest. Ms. Bowers?
It's a reluctant yes. I would hope that we can move forward with a compliance officer in the future and really mandating some percentages. I would like to thank Centurion Construction Group for their work in clearly outlining a diversity plan and estimated percentages. So reluctantly, yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes,
Resolution 20 passes.
thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Moving on to resolution 61 of 2020.
Resolution 61 of 2020 is a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan submitted by Shalom House to construct an emergency and transitional housing facility on 3 vacant parcels along North 15th Street.
Council members, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Petrosky, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes,
Resolution 61 passes.
thank you. Moving on to resolution 66 of 2020.
Resolution 66 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Civitas LLC for the purpose of providing professional services to the city's Department of Building and Housing and Development, including but not limited to technical assistance and general consulting services for general technical assistance, lead Tier 3 site-specific environmental review, and CARES Act technical assistance.
Any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Ms. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Madsen?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes,
Resolution 66 passes.
thank you. Moving on to resolution 67.
Resolution 67 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into an easement agreement with Omniside Media for the purpose of utilizing the access road to the Paxton Park in order to construct and maintain a billboard in adjacent Scottsdale Shopping Center.
Any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please.
Madam President,
Yes,
I believe it will require a motion in order to add the provision that was discussed on stormwater management, that get included in the contract at the time.
okay. Mr. Mattson, do you have that amendment? I
Ye-
wasn't aware that they were doing additional amendment, Mr. Grover.
This went to the report of Mr. Mattson that there was a stormwater management possibility. It's unlikely.
I see
So it's
that, but
really
I
a
didn't-
cautionary provision.
Okay, I did not know that he put it in as an additional amendment. Mr.
Apologies
Mattson,
for the mix-up. But yeah, I'd like to make a motion to, bear with me, I just want to get the verbiage correct. A motion to amend Resolution 67 of 2020 to include a provision that Omnisite Media cover any and all costs and fees to comply with any and all of Swadera Township's ordinances, rules, and regulations regarding stormwater management for the duration of the lease agreement.
any comments? Second, please, on that amendment?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on that amendment? Hearing none, please call the vote, Mr. Petrosky, on the amendment.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Now, will you please call the vote on resolution 67 as amended?
Sure. Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels.
No.
Sorry, was that no?
No.
All right, Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Resolution 67 passes.
thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Moving on to resolution 68, 2020.
Resolution 68 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the use of limited agreement for certain post-employment retirement benefit rates to attract and retain experienced senior management officials for the Harrisburg Bureau of Police.
Have a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Thank you, President Williams. Mayor Papenfuse, I know that during our work session, we asked for some preliminary numbers or some sort of information so that we would know the long-term budgetary impacts. I believe you said that getting exactly what we would want might take longer than the time we had available, but I believe Neil said that there were some preliminary reports and things that could be pulled from research done during previous negotiations or something like that. So if we could just get some sort of numbers, because I know we haven't received anything, but I know you asked for us to vote on this tonight due to, I guess, time sensitivity. So if we could just get some information and continue the discussion a little bit.
Okay, well, here's how I would say the cost would depend on how many of our command staff were to retire during the duration of the contract. So if no one retires for the duration of the contract, 5 more years, then the cost would be nothing for this benefit. If everyone were to retire tomorrow, the cost would probably be around $30,000 a year for everyone, and for each year. And it basically depends on when they retire and at what point. So worst case scenario, figure $30,000 a year is the cost if everybody retires tomorrow. More likely, you're going to see staggered retirements where maybe one command staff retires next year, another command staff retires the following year. And remember, the amount of the benefit is based on 10% of their salary and then 70% of that. So it would be about $7,000 or $8,000 per individual per year that they're retired. And that's how you can make the calculation.
All
Is
right,
that
to my council member, fellow council members to see if they have any questions, or if that satisfied what we were asking for. I know you kind of gave us a similar breakdown at our work session. I believe we asked for something a little more detailed, but I will open it up to my council members for their comments on this matter. So I will start all the way to my right if we were on the dais. So Councilwoman Daniels,
No more questions.
Councilman Majors,
Yeah, so just to refresh my memory, this is for the, this is just for the current contract here, but this will extend some of those provisions to those in senior management, correct?
Right. It would extend the benefits that the FOP have to senior management for the duration of the contract. We currently have 4 command staff in the police department. And what I was saying is that if all 4 of them chose to retire tomorrow, then all 4 of them would get a 10% bump on their salary for the purpose of the pension calculation. That's not going to happen, thankfully. But we do expect some retirements over the course of the contract, and most likely at least 1 retirement for next year.
Okay, right. So, but that benefit would extend to anyone that becomes part of senior management throughout the contract. So it wouldn't just be those
Correct.
4 that are currently there. So
That's
someone
right.
moves up, decides to, serve in a senior management position for 3 years, then retire. Those benefits would then be extended. I think that's why we had some of the questions that we had just around around management and what those facts and figures would look like, because we do recognize that our senior management with the department are all at or above retirement, have enough time in to retire, and then there are those that are below them that could potentially move up. We understand that this is part of the concern that's delaying people from potentially considering moving into management positions, but then they would be extended those benefits. So yeah, I mean, for me, having a little bit of that information would be helpful, a little actuarial analysis, but I get that it is going to be a maybe it could be a few hundred, a few, maybe tens of thousands.
Majors, can you speak up a little bit, please?
Sorry, I'm trying to get close to the mic. So it could be tens of thousands of dollars per year for the contract, but then it would extend to them for however long that they're under our retirement benefits. No further questions at this time. Thank you, Chair Green.
thank you, Councilman Majors. Next will be Vice President Allett. Do you have any questions?
No questions right now. Thank you.
President Williams, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Councilman Madsen, do you have any questions?
None for me, thanks.
And Councilwoman Bowers, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. So if everyone's okay, we can move this on to tonight's agenda for a vote. Is there anyone that is opposed to moving this for a vote tonight? Seeing none, I would ask President Williams if we could vote on this tonight to ensure that we get it passed in a diligent amount of time.
Okay. I have a motion to go back in. I'm sorry, I won't go back into session. I want to move on since we're suspended the rules. Can we just move on to resolution 74 of 2020 then?
Sure. Resolution 74 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application to DCD CFA Multimodal Transportation Fund Grant Program for up to $3 million to help fund the construction of the Urban Meadow Extension Project and to fund design and construction of related streetscape improvements on Riley Street.
Mr. Majors, Public Works.
Yes, I'd turn it over to the administration or those that are coming to present on this project.
Good evening, council members. This is Wayne Martin, city engineer. This project, if may share a screen with you. Okay, we put together a community map. The project, everyone's familiar with the Urban Meadow Extension. The design fees are currently being done by Wilson Consulting under a grant that was given to the city by Dauphin County. It was a gaming grant. So it's fully paid design fees. So the project should be ready for construction early 2021. And as we're developing this, obviously, we're trying to connect the courthouse with Midtown. Some other things came to fruition, obviously. The courthouse has no bus stop associated with it, no improved bus stop associated with it. So you can see some sidewalk and some bus stops along 6th Street to tie into with the proposed development of the courthouse and current development of the courthouse, and then the state archives to the north. We also became aware of some development, potential development along Riley Street and the surface parking lots, during the discussion of the Urban Meadow project with certain stakeholders and neighboring property owners. And so we've added some streetscaping, select streetscaping along Riley too. So the grant before you is, we're calling it sort of a courthouse connection grant application. It's a little bit beefed up from the original Urban Meadow. 3 million is the max grant request. We will not be asking for the full 3 million. We're in the process of refining our cost estimates at this time. But this is a Commonwealth Financing Authority grant application that we've been successful securing $500,000 just last year for the East-West Connections grant. That project's kicked off and we're in the concept phase. Remember, the purpose of this grant is to encourage economic development through multimodal transportation. And I think this is the right project for this grant funding source.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? Just making sure my mic is good.
I can hear you.
Okay. And I guess we're under a little bit of a time crunch, which is why we had to suspend the rules. Is that correct for the submission of this application?
So this application is due September 30th. Yes.
Okay. Understood. And I will start with questions from members of council. So I will start, I guess I will start all the way down with Councilwoman Bowers. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Councilwoman Green, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions on this. Thank you.
President Williams, do you have any questions on this application submission?
Yes, I do. Wayne, so you're making this a thoroughfare that would extend from 3rd Street to 6th Street?
So the Urban Meadow itself currently extends to Fulton. So we would extend it in addition, from Fulton to 6th. Yes, ma'am.
And where would be the parking, the angled parking that you're going to implement?
So I don't know if you can see my screen, but it would be on Riley between Logan and Fulton. And perhaps to 5th too. We're in the concept development phase, but we're trying to add additional parking. I mean, we're cognizant of the fact that the courthouse traffic study identified a need, best case scenario, 415 parking spaces. Worst case scenario, 825 parking spaces for the federal courthouse. Now there is another resolution to add a 200 space surface lot in the vicinity of the federal courthouse. But that courthouse is going to open June 8th of 2022. So we're obviously looking for ways to maximize multimodal travel. And I think situating angled parking on Riley, particularly if the surface lots there, the hack surface lots are going to be developed, and that developer is actually on the call, Greenworks Development, if you have questions. But there will be an additional need for parking. So we're looking to we've had some success with angled parking on Third Street in front of the museum. And so we're looking to duplicate that success on this project.
Okay. How many additional parking spaces, when you, if you do this, how many would that create?
So, I will have to defer to the Vanessa, if she's still on the call, or Doug Neidig. They actually.
I don't think Vanessa's on still, Wayne, but
Okay.
we're estimating at this point 50 additional parking spaces because of the angled parking.
Okay, well so will we be in line with standard parking as far as installing meters?
So we would, yep, I can take that one. So we would definitely want to negotiate with standard parking a credit or some sort for any additional spaces we add to the non-compete areas.
Okay. So you have not been in conversation with them as of yet?
Not yet. We would want to finalize the design and give them an estimated time of completion before we.
And I see on your map that there's going to be future development of what, townhomes or apartments in that area?
Apartments is what we're planning on the 4th and Riley lot. Wayne's got a little graphic showing one of the concept renderings that we've done. We are going to submit, exactly, there it is. We're going to submit for approval fairly shortly on that. 135 to 150 units in an apartment project as concepted right now.
I don't have any more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allett, Councilman Allett, any questions?
No questions for me.
And Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
No.
Okay. Yeah, seeing none, and I don't know, I guess just since we are voting simply on the face value of this resolution, I guess it's not really germane to bring in the future development, in so much as I think the concern that I have, although on the extension of the urban meadow, support that without a problem, but the concern is, as we are already discussing about there being a lack of parking in that area, the potential for additional residential space via these, I guess, soon to be proposed 150 apartments, what that does to the parking infrastructure in that area, which is already struggling. We know a lot of folks that are in the Midtown area struggle with parking and what impacts that'll have. But since we are just focused on Resolution 74, which is just this grant application, seeing no other questions, I'd ask that.
I do, I'm sorry, Mr. Majors. What is the matching fund that's going to be required?
So we don't under the Act 47. I don't believe we have to have a matching fund. However, we're working on our. Well, first of all, we did the county paid for the design, so that's 75,000 that could be considered a match, if you will. Our 2021 budget proposal will likely have some a proposal for construction. Actually, it'd be 2022 for construction inspection and possibly for construction match. We're still writing the grant application at this time, so we basically don't have any budgeted match for this project.
Well, it says in your resolution, it has matching funds, financial assistance under the multi-modal transportation fund shall be matched by local funding in an amount not less than 30% of the non-federal share of the project costs. So that was my question about the matching fund.
Rebecca, are you able to answer that question?
She can submit that to me later, Wayne.
Okay.
Right, so then if you have an additional question, President Williams, because yeah, go ahead, sorry, if you have a question.
Okay,
So Wayne, I guess from that explanation, are we looking to pay for this entire project via grants? Or would there be any additional city money? that
but
would
he said he
allocate?
didn't know.
He was speaking to that specific grant, so I'm asking,
Right.
are there any city monies being anticipated to be spent on this project?
I think the city spend would be limited to well, actually, that's county money was the design. Construction inspection, which is typically about 10% of the construction cost, no more. We would likely have to budget in a 2022, which would be the anticipated construction season. But there would be no city funds towards construction unless, we don't these grant applications are sort of an art. DCED, Commonwealth Financing Authority, typically does not fund a final, a whole project with $1.5 million project. They'll probably, if they do fund it at all, would probably fund a portion of it. And we would, we're also going to submit an application for this project, likely submit an application for this project to PennDOT multimodal grant. So oftentimes what happens is what Commonwealth Financing Authority does not fund, so say they offer 500,000 like they did on the East-West connection, PennDOT doesn't want to see dead money, right? So what they'll do is they'll offer the other, the remaining funds so that you have a complete project. We can still have conversations with the federal courthouse. They've indicated during the land development process that they would have accessible bus stops, build accessible bus stops for the courthouse site. Now, I understand they're over budget and everything else, but that they've made those statements to the city, and currently I have not seen any plans to have accessible bus stops associated with the federal courthouse site. So I don't anticipate any additional city general fund money going into the construction. I do anticipate we would probably have to spend or pay for construction inspection services, which would be around 10%. So about 150,000, which we would seek to budget in 2022 at the earliest.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Wayne, one of the things we had talked about earlier too is that the 320 Riley project investment could be a potential match for some of this as well.
Right. Yeah, it's going to fall into how that's sort of the art of grant applications, I think, because this again is a community and economic development grant.
Okay.
Councilman Majors, if I may, the exhibit, which has the multimodal requirements in it, under page 3 specifically notes the 30% match, but then has the clarification that as of right now, municipalities should not be anticipating having to have the match, a provision that expires December 31st, 2020. So under the current application, the read is that this one wouldn't require the normal match of a multimodal grant, assuming PennDOT moves forward.
Okay.
It said may not. Now, I read that, Neil, but it says may not. So that's why I asked the question.
I understand. I'm just
It says may not.
The
May not.
interpretation is the
Okay.
application is not requiring one.
Okay,
PennDOT can always tell us something different.
you're right. That's why I asked the question. Okay.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'd ask that it be placed on, well, it's already on the agenda and we consider it for a vote this evening, and I will turn it back over to President Williams.
Thank you very much. We will also move on to Resolution 75. Since we're still suspending the rules up for discussion. Mr. Petrowski, please read that into record.
Resolution 75 of 2020 is a resolution ratifying and approving the modification and one-year extension of the 2019-2020 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Harrisburg and Local 521, American Federal of State, County, and Municipal Employees District Council 90.
And who's here representing the city regarding Resolution 75? Mr. Grover?
Is that me, Mr. Mayor?
That's you, Neil.
Thank you, man. Just checking. So the city and ASME entered into negotiations. Their current extension was set to expire December 31st of this year. After a good faith back and forth, the terms which are in the term sheet attached to the resolution were agreed to by the city and the leadership of the union. They took that back for a membership vote, and the report back was they ratified that, I believe, on September 10th by a 2-to-1 margin. It extends the current contract by 1 year. It includes, once again, the $1,000 signing bonus in January, which was in the last 4 years now. It changes the wage rate increase in January, which has been steady at 1%, I believe, for 3 years in a row, to a 2% come January. It has what was very important to both the city and the ASME leadership, a $2,500 hazard bonus, which would be payable as fast as possible, assuming the contract is approved by council. That is also part of the budget reallocation that the council has reviewed. It has a provision that requires that if for any reason we awarded other union members or other city employees a bonus that is higher than the $2,500, that ASME members would be entitled to that as well. The current budget reallocation has that hazard bonus equal now across fire, police, ASME, frontline workers, and a handful of managers who were not allowed to alter their work site or their work schedule during COVID. And so that is the bargain as negotiated. In order to move forward, I believe it is safe to say both the city and ASME understood, because of COVID, it was very hard to negotiate a long-term agreement, not knowing what the future holds. And so it seemed a cautious way to move forward for another year after 2020.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grover. Council members, are there any questions or comments? I'll start with Ms. Bowers. Is there any questions?
No, thank you.
Ms. Green,
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mattson,
No questions for me, thanks.
Mr. Majors,
No questions.
Mr. Allen,
No questions.
and Ms. Daniels.
No questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grover. There's no questions, and seeing there's no questions, I will put this on the agenda. I mean, it's already on the agenda, but we will vote on this after we go back into session. May I have a motion to go back into session, please?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We're back in the session. We now will go back to Resolution 68 of 2020. Mr. Petrosky, please read it into record, and then we will vote on it.
Resolution 68 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the use of a limited agreement for certain post-employment retirement benefit rates to attract and retain experienced senior management officials for the Harrisburg Bureau of Police.
No questions or comments, council members? Additional? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Resolution 68 passes.
thank you. Moving on to Resolution 70 of 2020.
Resolution 70 of 2020 is a resolution approving the fourth proposed 2020 budget reallocation.
Any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Resolution 70 passes.
Moving on to Resolution 74.
Resolution 74 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application to the DCD CFA Multimodal Transportation Fund Grant Program for up to $3 million to help fund the construction of an urban meadow extension project and to fund design and construction of related streetscape improvements on Riley Street.
Any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
Yes.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
yes,
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Resolution 74 passes.
thank you. Moving on to resolution 75.
Resolution 75 of 2020 is a resolution ratifying and approving the modification and one-year extension of the 2019-2020 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Harrisburg and Local 521, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, District Council 90.
Any additional questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett,
Yes, sorry.
Ms. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
yes,
Mr. Madsen,
Yes.
Majors,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes,
Resolution 75 passes.
moving on to resolution 76 of 2020.
Resolution 76 of 2020 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to develop an approximately 200 space parking lot at 1501 North 7th Street.
That will be placed in Community Economic Development Committee. We now move on to old business, council members. Is there any old business that you would like to discuss? Mr. Grover, I certainly would like to ask you a question.
Certainly, Madam President.
Of the 38 spaces that you have put, that we have put on North 6th Street, where are we at with as far as instituting or putting in parking meters?
That piece of legislation is firmly in the review in my desk, Madam President.
I know it's on your desk.
That's where, that is where we are. So
The 38 spaces, Mr. Grover, at $16.50 a space times 38, that's $627 a day that we're losing.
I would respectfully disagree that we're losing anything, but I
We
will.
are, because it goes to standard parking, but then it comes back to us.
Yes.
Just want to know, when's the timeline for you to get that off your desk and to get that to the appropriate officials?
Madam President, that is an excellent question. I do not have an answer for you at this time. If the city could stop creating emergencies or having them on a day-to-day basis, that would make that easier. But generally, an emergency crosses my desk almost every day of the week in one small or large form. But it is on the list. We conferred with Mr. Woolley and the mayor last week on the remainder legislative calendar, and it is intended to come through. I received an email from HPA asking us to try and move it forward to PEDFA, but it is a very long list. I can tell you that.
I was also contacted. That's why I wanted to know where the process was, Mr. Grover, and I knew it was on your desk. So if you can give me an update sometime next week as to when you think that'll be off your desk. Also, the lot at 2nd and Locust Street that has the parking area there, a call was extended to me as well that we are not moving on that. And that's the one that Brinjack owns that we're not receiving any revenue on. Are we any closer to reaching an agreement?
No, it's not an agreement. It would be litigation straight up. I could assess from the call who's calling you. But no, it's straight up litigation.
Are we still in litigation? I thought
No, we
were.
haven't commenced litigation. It is not straight up. It's not, when I say straight up, I'm saying that's the solution. The litigation itself isn't straight up because the lot is not marked for the multiple parcels that they combined.
Okay,
So there's multiple parcels, there's a survey involved, there's landlines involved, and there's partial grandfathered in parking because of that was lawful. So not the entire lot was knocked out. Part of the lot is knocked out. In terms of the rights of the owners, part of the lot would be lawful, part of it would not. And that is fairly exacting litigation.
I was under the understanding that when I first got on council that we were involved in some type of litigation with the owner of that lot. So that's
We
why
were.
we were. So
We
what
were.
happened? Okay. So
So
where's
that judgment was appealed. Eventually that expired. That doesn't change the facts that were left on the table, is that part of it was grandfathered in because it was a parking lot used for the commercial enterprise. I believe the old Phillips office store, and the other parts were not.
right? Okay,
We had a proposal, I will note, from one of the owners before this one to purchase it, lease it back to the Brinjack building and place those revenues in the parking system. And that proposal was rejected outright, which would have solved everyone's problems from my perspective.
okay. Yes, I did. I pulled my paperwork, Mr. Grover, so I agree with you, but I thought we were still in litigation with that. From my understanding, from what I read through the litigation papers that I have, we didn't reach an agreement, so that's why I was asking you for an update.
We have to start over again in litigation. That's where, so.
Okay. All righty. Any other additional old business council members? Any new business council members? Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Wes.
Okay,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Mr. Alec, you're next.
Mr. Vice President, I'll defer to you.
Oh, no, go ahead, Wes.
Mr. Majors, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a few quick notes. So tomorrow, September 23rd, at the Latino Hispanic Community Center, there will be free COVID testing available. That is in partnership with the Katy mobile testing van and Penn State Harrisburg. So folks can come out there from, I believe, 10, it starts at 10 o'clock, I believe it's 10 to 3 is the time that the van's going to be available for the testing. Additionally, we all know fall's here, so just a reminder about leaf collection and street sweeping. So leaf collection will be done on the normal day for street sweeping by city employees. We just ask that you bag the leaves into paper bags and place them normally where you place your trash, and city employees will be coming around to pick them up. That is scheduled to go right now through December 1st. And if all the leaves do not fall by then we will, the city usually extends the courtesy to pick up leaves all the way up through until the first major snowfall. And lastly, this Saturday will be the Tri-County Community Action, their 8th Greater Harrisburg Litter Cleanup. You can visit Tri-County CAC to sign up and provide and find locations that they will be doing those cleanups. And that is all I have. So thank you, President Williams, for your time.
You're welcome. Mr. Alec,
And mine is simple. It's just a question. Next Tuesday is the 5th Tuesday of the month. Are we having a work session scheduled or a meeting? I know we had some continued discussions on the police reform bills. I just wanted to kind of confirm what our expectations were for next week.
it depends on what comes down through the legal office, Mr. Alec, whether we will have a work session or not. At this point, we don't have anything to go on the work session.
Okay, very well.
Okay,
President Williams?
Mr. Mattson?
Yes, just wanted to let the public know that based off my report, that Harrisburg University will be having a town hall in conjunction with the city, September 28th at 5:30 p.m. It is a Zoom meeting, and the passcode and link are going to be produced on the city's website, promoted through social media. And just wanted to notify everybody of that date and time, and the details will be coming out soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Madam President, just for clarification, at the last meeting, glad Ben brought this up because Chair Green had mentioned that there was going to be a work session on the 29th, which would be next week, discussing Bill 8. And then on October 6th, we're going to have a public hearing. So just wanted, some clarification or to confirm when the discussion on Bill 8 would be, whether it would be next week or after the public hearing on October 6th or October 15th. That's up to Chair Green.
Ms. Green, what would you like to do?
Do my fellow council members mind having a meeting next week? I don't know what everyone's schedule looks like. I'll be fine having a meeting next week. If not, I'd ask that we move it to the first week of October after the hearing.
Okay.
And
Ms.
we-
Green, and I will be in corresponding with you within the next couple of days to see if anything comes down to be put on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Well, that's what I wanted to follow up with. So if we only had one resolution introduced tonight, correct? That has to go to committee?
Yes.
Correct.
Community economic.
And so I guess the question is, obviously, we have 2 Tuesdays coming up. Do we need 2 meetings, or can we do all things in one meeting? I'm just thinking in terms of, from a scheduling standpoint, I'm fine either way.
I will let you know, Mr. Allen.
Okay,
Once I find, and speaking with Mr. Grover in the next couple of days, if we have any additional legislation that comes down.
perfect. Thank you.
And Madam President, I think there is some older legislation that's been lost in the shuffle because of COVID that has been sitting. But I cannot point my finger to it sitting here on the table. But we will check and see if there was anything that was sort of set aside for whatever reasons while we were in this virtual mode that didn't require a public hearing.
Mr. Petrosky, would you go through all the committees and find out if there's any additional legislation that has not been brought out?
Sure.
Okay.
We have at least one nominee for the Historic Architecture Review Board.
Oh, okay. Anything else?
Just a reminder, the census, to fill out the census forms if anyone hasn't done that yet, we have until September 30. So we may have a meeting before that, but not a legislative session. So just a reminder, census.gov to fill out those forms or reach out to some of the local people around here that are doing that. It's critically important for revenues, federal dollars that come to the city of Harrisburg.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have quite a few new business items. The first is I want to extend congratulations to the Alexander Building Construction Company and the Alvin Butts Incorporated. They're located at 315 Vaughn Street in Harrisburg, PA. They were awarded for ranking number 3 on the Central Pennsylvania Business Journals in 2020. And out of the top 50, they are ranked as the fastest growing company. And also they won the 2020 CMAA Project Achievement Award. So I want to say congratulations to that company. Next, I want to go to the Capital Area Transit. Last year, they began a program called Free Transportation for Veterans. It originated last summer. And also they added a new fee, and they also added a free transportation for veterans program. And it provides a 10-day pass for the fixed route system of Cumberland, Dauphin counties to attend interviews for those seeking employment. And once the veteran has secured the job, CAT will provide a monthly pass for 4 additional months. For more information, call 717-846-5562. It's extension 1630, or email vets@3pride.org. And it's a Capital Area Transit program. Another program that added this year is the medical transportation to local CBOC, which is community-based outpatient clinics, or to the Lebanon VA Hospital. Services offered Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And CAT requires the veteran to fill out an application and follow the reservation process. Reservations must be made by 12 noon, the business day before the appointment. All of the CAT vehicles are ADA accessible and escorts are permitted, but please schedule the escort at time and reservation. And for more information for that program, please contact CAT at 1-800-303-1904 to see if you may qualify for the medical transportation to local hospitals or outpatient clinics. Next, I want to tell you about it. All You Can Incorporated. It's a nonprofit organization that's having a coat drive. They've been having that coat drive and collecting coats since August, and it will continue through October the 23rd. Once they receive the coats, they then distribute the coats back into the community. It is done at a free store fashion unit, and that will be on October the 24th. This year, the All You Can Incorporated has partnered with the Love the Hill. And that is a drive that they're having on October the 24th as well. The address is 333 South 13th Street, and that's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. There will be free food. There will be photos of families. They will have games, clothing, and much, much more. So please tell anyone that may be interested that they're having that event. Due to the COVID, there are no drop boxes though. So if you want to donate a coat or any other article for the winner, please arrange it through 717-602-6936 or email www.allyoucanpa.org. And that's all I have for this evening. Anything else, council members? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Who moved?
Have a second?
Second.
Meeting is officially adjourned, council members.